this is Nick Murray. Welcome to our third episode of TrailerSound. We have an absolutely amazing show for you today, and I'm really excited to tell you about it. It's unlike anything we've done before. But before I get into that, I do want to thank all of you for the amazing support we've received on our first two episodes. All of you who've reached out on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and interacted with us during the shows. That's what this is really all about, and I really do thank you again. And thanks to everyone who joined us on Monday for the live recording session we broadcast. And I hope you got to see some things behind the scenes that you hadn't seen before that can help you in your work. So today's show, we're going back up to Seattle, where I've already interviewed Adam Gubman, and he gives us some very valuable information on his approach to composing, what samples he's using, how he conducts an orchestra, and this is one you do not want to miss. But before we get into that, I want to thank our sponsors for today. Our first sponsor is Vengeance. Head over to vengeance-sound.com. I'm telling you, these guys, I've been using their stuff for about 10 years now, and they're my go-to sample library for anything that's dance music or pop music, or if you need any current, really current sounding kicks, snares, hats, effects sweeps, stuff like that, you gotta check these guys out. They also make great sound sets or presets for synths like Massive, Fuser, Minimoog V, and their own set of plugins as well. So go to vengeance-sound.com and also find them on Facebook and Twitter. You will not be disappointed. The show is also brought to you by Switch, artist-driven trailer music. Check out switchtrailermusic.com for some samples of the music, and make sure to find Switch on Facebook at facebook.com/switchtrailermusic and at Twitter at Switch. So we're going to go back to our interview in Seattle now, and I'll be live tweeting on Twitter at TrailerSound and here on Ustream, so make sure to ask me any questions and I'll be able to chime in. Make sure to join us next week at 12 o'clock on Thursday, and hope you enjoy the episode. Hey everyone, this is TrailerSound. This is our third episode, and we're taping it here because we are live at Bastyr University up near Seattle, and it's a gorgeous evening. And
it's freezing.
I'm from Salt Lake City, so this is actually pretty warm for me, but Adam's in SoCal, so it's kind of chilly. But it's not raining, and that's big for Seattle. So we wanted to give a little intro here first, and then we'll go check out the studio and see what that's like, and then maybe we'll do a little recap after the recording session. So the point of this TrailerSound is to get you we talk about doing a behind the scenes. This is like serious behind the scenes, all access look into what goes on in making a full-fledged, full orchestral trailer album. And so this is Adam Gubman, everyone.
Hi.
You may not have heard this name before, but you will be hearing this name a lot in the trailer world. He knows pretty much everyone in the trailer world, and has been putting in some serious time in video game and TV music.
That's right, yeah, for many years.
Yeah, so why don't you talk a little bit first about, just introduce yourself, your work, maybe some of the places we've heard your music before?
Sure. So, well, I got my start maybe 7 or 8 years ago on a game called Pirates of the Burning Sea with a good friend of mine, Jeff Kurtenacker. And that was a Sony distributed game. We did probably 2 hours of music for it. The game did moderately well, but that was kind of like my gateway game into the video game world. And from there I went on to score close to 500 video games.
Whoa.
Just insane amounts of work. A lot of it is uncredited for a company called Somatone Audio. I still do a lot of work for them. We've done the majority of the top rated casual games in the market. Things from Play First and Big Fish and now Playdom and Disney Online Interactive and tons of companies. And on my own, I've done stuff for Ubisoft, worked on the Just Dance Kids line of video games and Karaoke Revolution. Tons and tons of stuff. And then I moved into doing library work about 3 years ago with Warner Chappell, and with them I've done the Olympics and the Royal Wedding, and most recently I rearranged the theme song for the Today Show, and just lots of stuff, tons of stuff. So I'm always busy.
And that's how we met each other, was through Nonstop when I used to work for them. Every time I'd be up at the studio, I'd see these scores laying around during my sessions, they'd have to sneak in all these cues from Adam, and I had to find out who this guy Adam Gubman was that had recording sessions like twice a week going on up there. So we ended up chatting and listened to his stuff and he listened to mine, and we figured we better do something together. So we're here at Bastyr. We've been working on this album, or Adam's been working on it mostly, for probably at least 6 months now.
Since September of last year.
Yeah.
It's a lot of love in this record. A lot of love.
Yeah. So it's the 4th album for Switch Trailer Music, and it's called Dark Matter, and you've probably seen the artwork floating around online. Can you tell us a little bit about well, let me give a little preface. We wanted to do a horror album, and I think originally we were going to split. You do 6 cues, I'll do 6 cues. I was going to do some more modern, glitchy ones, and he was going to do some orchestral ones. I think you sent me like maybe 1.5 demos, and I said, that is so cool. You got to do a whole album of that stuff. Like, it was so original and just so like retro meets modern trailer.
Yeah.
It's just like an interesting juxtaposition that I hadn't seen before in the trailer world.
I appreciate that, man. Well, I'm a huge fan of traditional Hollywood style film scores. Jerry Goldsmith and Bernard Herrmann and all these old guys from mid-century, 70s, 80s. Of course, John Williams. Who doesn't like him? So my initial idea was to do something that was more melodic and lush and moving and really spoke to the heart. And I think that's the name Dark Matter is really meaningful because it's not just scary and pensive and evil. It's actually meaningful and moving, and even down to the lyrics. I tried to pick really like positive and uplifting Latin poems to set, and I hope it comes off that way. I mean, I feel like we're really kind of riding the line between evil and beautiful, and that's what this album's really about. So.
Interesting. So how is that going to translate to a movie trailer?
Well, in this age of glory, the PG-13 glorification film, where it's all about being scared and jump scares rather than like slasher, gruesome, rip your head off and like Saw type movies, I think that there's a lot of room for emotion in horror movie trailers. That's not just your jump scare. That's not just your shredder film. And that's the market that I wanted to try to nail on the head with this. And I think when people hear it too, they'll feel it too, that these cues can hopefully be used in other film trailers, not just scary movies, but dramas and even comedies. I mean, there's some stuff in there that's, a little bit silly and fun
quirky
too.
Almost, yeah.
So, I tried to be real with the music and write music that I would want to listen to if I was listening to scary music, and this is what we've got.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll play a couple demos here for the interview. We'll edit them in, but for me, it's quite melodic.
Yeah.
And I think when you would think of horror stuff off the top of your head, you wouldn't think strong melodies. But I think
not the modern stuff.
Correct. But it really evokes storytelling, which could, I think, start out any creepy trailer, even the back end of some of these could be on any big back end trailer cue. Mm-hmm. So let's go take a look inside, and it's getting a little bit colder out here.
Yeah.
And we'll take you into the Bastyr Chapel.
Cool.
Tell us where we are.
We are in the heart of Bastyr Chapel, and this is the location where the record will be recorded tomorrow morning. I'm sitting in a pew. This is the actual church. It's really kind of creepy and cool and fitting of this whole process. And I don't think we could have picked a cooler locale for this.
What's the importance of recording in a big chapel like this as opposed to maybe a smaller studio or recording hall?
Well, I think we're going to really capture the sound of the room. And I think that's important with this record, especially that it feels like it's in a kind of a big Gothic space, and there's nothing like recording in an actual church to capture that reverb and the early reflections in the room and just the length and all that fun stuff.
Other trailer music companies have recorded here, Audio Machine, Sensid, Full Tilt. Our good friends from Cinesamples were just here.
Some World of Warcraft stuff was done here, I think.
World of Warcraft,
Dota.
tons of movie scores are done here. Why do people still record live? I guess is a quick way to get to this. Why not just use our MIDI samples? Especially if Cinesamples was just here a week ago recording stuff. Why don't we just use theirs that they already did?
I mean, there's definitely something to be said about the quality and the practicality and ease of use of using sample libraries, but you miss a lot. There's heart that's not there. I know it sounds cheesy, people always, but you get the real emotion of the musician sitting in the room and that energy and the back and forth between the conductor, the composer, and the orchestra, and being able to bring out something special that you can't really get with samples. It's to the ear, it may not be to your normal everyday listener, they may not notice any difference, but to composers and to emotion, to the emotion of the piece that it's set to, there's a big difference. And if we A-B'd the demo version of these songs and then the live orchestral version of them to picture, you would feel more from the live version. And it's nothing you can really place your finger on. It's just the energy of having everybody there and actually playing the parts and crescendoing the way you want them to, and the little sounds that you can't really capture with samples too, right? Like the bodies moving in the room and the breathing and all those little bits that make it feel more live. Cool. That was nice. Okay, so now we're going to go 22 to the end, everybody. So clicks at 20. Nice and tight here. And pull those strings, pull those crescendos to fortissimo really wide. You can even go above fortissimo a little bit.
Crunchy down.
There. Make it a nice big swell. That goes for the winds that are doubling that part from 24 to 26. Oboes and clarinets. Here we go. I mean, even people with good home stereo systems and a lot of times the TV projects that I've done and that I know you've done too have ridiculous turnaround times. There's just really not the time or the budget, and the reason why they don't use just library stuff and they use real composers is because they want to get something special, but they only have the budget to get something just enough out of a composer and not enough time to go and get it tracked. But because this is a library, we can take all the time we want and make it as big and beautiful and put as much heart into it as we can afford to spend, time-wise and energy-wise. And not just money, but time and energy too. So I hope that comes across in this album. I really do. Because we've worked on this thing for, the better part of a year. And it's all good.
Why is that? If it takes a day to write a cue, to get the general idea down, what takes 6 more months to do?
It really is a luxury to be able to sit back and listen to your work for months and to pick it apart and make sure everything is perfect. And Nick and I are both, we're both ridiculous perfectionists in different ways. So the two of us together, it's going to take a little longer when we have the time to do it. But that time has been well spent, and the final result is something that has been under scrutiny and written and rewritten and orchestrated and rearranged and reprogrammed and polished and toiled over, and to the point where I've gone to bed, humming second violin parts, and something doesn't sound right. I have a week to figure out what it is. So it's been a long process of fine-tuning. And there's not one cue that I wish we could have had more time on, because we really spent all the time we wanted to in making this sound as polished and as commercial and as real as we could afford to. So this is the podium where the conductor stands and where I'll be standing tomorrow, and my scores will be here. And this is like the conductor's mix thing here, so I can adjust the mix in my headset depending on what I want to hear and click track on the whole thing. And hopefully I'll just be listening and going off the vibe of the musicians.
Okay, so let me come up here.
Yeah.
And then tell me who sits where. What's the orchestra layout look like?
Now I feel like this is a test. I'll see. Okay, so these are the violin 1s and 2s, and viola's right in the center here. And then over here should be the cello and the bass. And then we'll have the brass back there in the right corner. And then
behind that baffle?
Yeah, that should be like the low brass, and those 3 chairs in the very back are for the trumpets, I think. And then over there on the left, I'm assuming that's woodwinds. It might be French horns.
French horns is on the far side.
French,
far
yeah.
side? Okay. And the woodwinds are center right behind the violas.
And then choir.
And then choir, well, when we do choir, I'm sure there'll be a different setup, but...
Yeah, we'll strike them and put them in the middle there.
Yeah?
So they're
There you
close
go.
to the room mics.
Right in the middle.
And Adam, why don't you record choir at the same time?
We want the separation. And also because this music has some weird effectual overdubs that we kind of have to take separately. It's just, the size of the room and the size of the pieces, we want to try to maximize the clarity of the recordings, and the way to do that is by recording the choir separately, really. So.
Okay. And then when you're conducting, say you've got your score right here.
Yes.
How do you follow along what the second violins are playing versus what the bassoon is playing versus what the tuba guy is supposed to be playing? How do you watch that all from your stand and keep that organized in your mind while you're moving at, say, 150 beats per minute, and you've got 60 people here watching you?
I have no idea. I have to be doing that. Well, I don't know how other people do it, because I'm not super conductor guy, but I know the songs really well, so I know when people are supposed to be playing, and obviously you can't direct everybody, and you're not really supposed to be doing that as a conductor. What I'm here for, because they have click tracks, so what I'm here to do really is just to make sure things don't completely fall apart, and also to kind of just bring an extra bit of emotion out of the musicians, and to express to them what I can't put on the page, and my face and my weird movements and just all that kind of stuff. That's live, So that's my job.
I've seen almost like like a coach.
Exactly.
You're up there, you're giving them encouraging words, you're telling them, great job on that part, try this a little bit harder.
Yeah, I mean, these guys don't need to be cued in. They know how to read music, they know how to count. I'm not worried about that. But there might be some things that maybe I didn't, with the orchestrator, get on the page right, or maybe some things that I missed and that tomorrow I can kind of clean up for them live and express better with words than I can with notations on the page, I guess. So that's how it works.
What's your let me step down here. What's your favorite orchestral instrument or orchestral section to like to hear, or just like your overall favorite? Like,
I mean, they're all so different in their usage and their color, and it's like asking somebody, asking a painter what their favorite color is, or a chef what their favorite ingredient is, because you're cooking with everything. And for me, just the joy of having everybody in the same room and being able to hear them all play at once and create the timbres and the colors that I imagined in my head for so long is really thrilling for a composer and a musician of any sort. It's the whole recipe coming together and finally being able to see it all congeal into this big, awesome mass.
One last question here before you got to go, and I go to take off soon. You talk about comparing the live stuff to what you're hearing in your head, and I think for composers that's a common concept.
Yeah.
But I think for people who aren't composers, that concept is completely baffling, mind-blowing, that you could hear a whole orchestra, including different parts and melodies, and where certain things come in your head.
Yeah.
Explain, where does that happen for you? Does it happen when you wake up in the morning? Is it just hours of hard work? And if you're an aspiring composer, how do you get to that point where you
score study?
Where that happens?
Listening and score study. I wasn't a big classical music fan, and I always loved film music, and I always could hear melodies, but I couldn't fully realize what I was hearing until I went back to school and finished my composition degree, and had an opportunity to really dive in and dig into some orchestrations and scores, and then when I started to meet other composers, the luxury of being able to bounce my work off of them and have them go, hey, it'd be really cool to hear, instrument X doing this or instrument Y playing here, and then get your gears turning, and you start to develop a palette in your head of colors and ideas. And from studying orchestration and seeing how your favorite composers combine instruments to achieve certain effects, that's all training. I mean, any composer that wants to write, they have that bug where they hear melodies and they hear harmonies and the whole thing, but the actual act of orchestrating it into a piece that's going to be played by 60 musicians is really training, and it's lots of hard work, and it's something that to me is still kind of elusive, that I'm trying to master, and I know it's going to take a lifetime of study for me, and I still do score study, and I'm still buying and downloading scores and listening to film music all the time, and listening to work that my peers are creating, Nick and my friends in video games and other friends of mine, Mark Petrie and other, movie trailer composers, to gauge whether or not I'm relevant still, and if my production skills are up to par, and if my orchestration and composition has that integrity that's required in this industry, because just because these are movie trailers doesn't mean that we're not writing them like they're concert music, and that's something that people don't think about a lot, is when you're writing music for video games, it's not just blips and beeps. Is my friend, I have a friend who's been writing video game music since the 90s, and he's been the champion of getting people to understand that music for video games is not just sine waves and bleeps and blips, and it can be that, and it can be very cool when it's that, but it really is through composed, well thought out, some of the most beautiful music full of integrity and ideas, and we always say that if Beethoven was alive today, he'd probably be doing film and game music, because that's what is relevant now. So did that answer your question, or did I just
So basically, you compare yourself to Beethoven.
Not me. I'm saying that my peers and colleagues who are way more experienced than me and have years of experience and tons of awards and titles, and you know, it's good to know people that are, you know, and I always try to surround myself by composers that are much more experienced and much better than me, so I can learn and grow, and I always push myself to try to do that. I think that's important, is at any level, no matter if you're just starting or if you've done, you know, tons of work, you got to keep trying to make yourself relevant and better.
I think that's something that drives me too, is I always feel like, in a good way, I always feel like I suck.
Yeah.
I always feel like there's so much to learn, and it pushes me to get better and to try new things and stuff.
And at some point, you just have to, like, when you're writing a piece, you just have to be done with it. I mean, because we could have worked on this record for another year easy.
Right.
But you know, you got to give yourself an end date and say, okay, I'm gonna do this for like 3 more days, and then that's it. And I'm gonna move on, because as a composer, you could kill yourself over the stress of having to redo and rewrite and everything.
If you're a young composer, say you like trailer music, say you like game music, whatever, you talked about networking, getting to know people who are better than you, working with them, working for them.
Right.
What are some couple quick outlets that someone could say, hey, it's just me and a computer in a room, where do I go from here?
Well, it's interesting, because a lot of friends that I've made over the past few years have been international friends, and some of my closest friends that I've gotten to meet, you know, at conventions and in real life, I've met on the internet and Facebook and stuff first. And one of the best ways to experience trailer music is maybe Trailer Music News and other, you know, film fanatic forums, and even Audio Gang, the Game Audio Network Guild, is a great place to meet other composers that are doing trailer and video game work, and it's not hard to find up and comers and guys that are doing amazing things, and all of us tend to gravitate towards each other too. I mean, it's really not that big of an industry. We all tend to have run into one another at one point, and there's nobody that's not approachable. I think that, you know, ego would really kill you in this industry, so it's important to just stay humble and keep working hard and stuff. But the internet's, I think, the #1 resource for any young composer, really.
It's called Now Get Me a Sandwich. And on the side of the truck is a big Viking with a sandwich on the spear.
Nice.
And he looks just like me. So I have a picture of me in front of the truck like that. In front of
Did you get free sandwiches when you go there?
They gave me one that day. My friend knows the sister works there, so
That's awesome.
I had to eat it.
Okay. All right, hey everyone. We're back here. We're at Bastyr University, and we are in the recording room, which is right behind the chapel, which is right over that way. We'll go back in there in a second. Just want to catch up with Adam. We have about 45 minutes till tea time.
Yeah,
till the downbeat.
It just got real when all the musicians walked in.
Yeah, so it's starting to get that buzz, that excitement, the butterflies. And we do have a couple questions here. We had one from someone this morning. His name is Adam Hepworth.
Okay.
And
Hi, Adam. Great name.
He wanted to ask a couple of things here. Let me find it here. If the composers could talk a little bit more about which DAW they use and sample libraries, that would be cool.
Yeah, sure. Well, let me just say that.
Maybe just what do you use and what kind of are your main go-to?
Okay, well, I personally use Logic right now, but I started out using Cakewalk and Sonar years ago, and for me, it hasn't changed the quality of my music. When people talk about what DAW they use, I think a lot of times they listen to the composer's work, whoever it is, and go, oh wow, I can write music just like them if I use a DAW. But like I was telling Brian before, I got my start working on a Yamaha MT-120 4-track in the 90s and old ADATs where you couldn't see the screen and you had no sample libraries. So instead of worrying about the DAWs, think about the music and the craftsmanship of it, and then worry about the tools later. You might find that maybe Cubase works better on your system. Maybe you have a PC and you want to go Sonar or Digital Performer or something, and it's all like technology specific issues too. I know some guys can run Logic better than others, and there's no specific reason why. So now it's Logic. Next month it could be Cubase. I've had some issues with Logic. I still love the company and everything, but a lot of my friends are using Cubase and are very successful with that too. And as far as sample libraries go, I like a lot of I look for character in sample libraries. So lately it's been Cinesamples. Mike Patty's stuff is, Mike and Mike make really great sounding stuff. Trolls Folman at 8Dio is also doing amazing work with a lot of character, and Sound Iron is one of my favorite sound libraries. Spitfire audio stuff, the Spitfire percussion I think is fabulous. It's really easy to use, and the technology behind it is really sound and recorded well. Different libraries for different purposes. My strings right now, I'm mostly using Hollywood strings. But that could change. It's a cue specific thing. So stock up on what you can afford and look at some of the boutique companies, because I think that their downloadable libraries are super affordable and easily accessible and
Maybe
stuff too.
they have different levels. You can get the
Like
one
the
that maybe
gold
doesn't have
version.
35 mic positions or something.
And for me, I don't need all those mic positions, so I always go for the gold versions and then just put the reverb in the rooms that I want on it, and that tends to be okay for me. So.
Okay. I think in terms of the DAW, for me, it's like when I was first starting out, maybe 10 years ago, I thought, yeah, you probably do need to know Logic and Cubase and Ableton Live now and this and that, because people are using each one and you should know them all.
You should.
And I personally, I don't really think that's the case anymore, because I think you should get comfortable with one.
Yeah.
So you can fly through it, so it's not just a technology thing. So you can make music and focus on music. However, if you're younger and you're trying to get a job in the industry, again, this is just my point of view, say you want to go work at remote control for Hans, you're going to need to know Cubase.
Yeah, for
If you come in there and you're a straight shooter Logic guy and you've never used Cubase before, you're not going to get the job.
But let's be honest, most of the technology is the same. It's just finding the buttons, right?
It's finding the buttons, it's getting used to it, and being fast in it.
So know how to digitally record. Know how to set up channel strips and get a clean sounding sound with a real microphone. Know how to set virtual instruments. Know how to do some post production stuff. And then when you get into the new DAW on your next job, or if you switch DAWs, YouTube tutorials.
Yes.
I mean, to find stuff you're looking for, and ask your friends, man. There's so many guys that are in your same, Adam, I'm talking to now specifically, in the same boat as you are, where you're trying to figure out how technology can help you. But a lot of that can be solved by going online and talking to other guys that do it.
And just putting in the time,
just
do the
doing it,
work,
right.
and you'll find which program and samples and stuff are your own. I think it's good to kind of look at what other people are using, and then spend the hours, do the work, write a cue a day using different things, layering different sounds, and figure out your own tricks and tips that you go to every time.
Right.
And then that'll help you develop your sound in your MIDI stuff at least.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, we don't want to talk too much about samples because we're sitting right in front of a massive orchestra, so it's kind of let's see. What are I guess we kind of talked a little bit about this, but briefly, people who are just starting down this career path, maybe they're a trailer music fan, they like epic music, they hear two steps or something, and they're like, wow, it's emotional, it's cool. How do I do that? And they can you can buy Logic for $200 now.
Yeah.
You can get some sample libraries.
Right.
And you can get up and going within 3 days.
Easy.
On a laptop.
Yeah.
That being said.
Oh, Reaper. Have you seen Reaper? Reaper's like super cheap, easy to use, affordable DAW.
Yeah.
Very stable.
Yeah.
I know some
heard
higher
good things
level
about it.
composers using it too. That's a cheap one if you want to get into something that's, reliable. I'm sorry.
Okay, so question is though,
Yeah.
how do you take it from dabbling and some kind of hobby into, okay, now I want to work in it.
Yeah.
And how do you get your foot in the industry door?
I don't know,
So that
man.
people
That's a
wanna
hard
hear-
question. I've been lucky a lot. I like to meet people, so I'll do whatever networking events I can do. I know you went to NAB last week, but GDC for me in the game industry has been enormously helpful, and that's where I met the Warner Chappell Nonstop guys.
okay.
Is at GDC, and through them, of course, I met Nick, and getting your foot in the door is always the trick, but I know it sounds kind of lame, but being in the right place at the right time, knowing the right people, taking that internship, taking that assistant job where you're doing crappy work and paying your dues for a few years. I don't care if it takes 4 or 5 years of getting somebody coffee, because you're there as a fly on the wall learning.
And someone else is not going to. Someone else will do it for
Exactly.
3 months and say, screw this.
Exactly.
And
it's always the last man standing.
if you're doing whatever everyone else is not doing,
Yes.
you're gonna make it one step
For
farther.
sure, man, for sure. But, just being patient. I know some kids that come to me and I've talked to 19, 20 years old, and they see what I do and they've got talent, but they want to be able to do it now. And I tell them that it takes a few years to get the networking down before you can be a successful business person, because this is not the art of music. This is the business of music.
Right.
So a lot of what we're doing is reinvesting in ourselves, spending the money that we make, like Nick is doing now, on the next project to take you to the next level. So monetary security comes later. Spend this time in your late teens, early to mid 20s, even into your early 30s, working on your craftsmanship, your networking, and reinvesting in yourself. Go to college, for goodness sakes. Get a degree in music. Not everybody can afford the time to do it, but you can take online classes. You can go to your local community college and take all the harmony classes you can take. Learn how to play an instrument. I get so tired of composers that say, well, I want to learn how to write music. What DAW do I use? But then they can't play a scale on the piano or pick up a guitar and play 3 chords. And that's so frustrating to me, because I
He's
spent...
talking about me, everyone. He's beating around the bush, but he's gonna throw my name out in a second.
And Nick Murray's a real jerk because... No, I'm just kidding. But, there, I'm not an amazing pianist, but I'm pretty good. But I've played all my life, and I know how to play a little bit. And you play a little bit of keyboard and stuff. And everybody that sits down, don't you play... How do you compose music without playing it? You just click in every note you put on the page.
No, I do my own thing.
All right. Well, I don't want to... I'm concerned, and I'm worried about what that means exactly. So let's move on. But most of my friends that are very successful, more successful than me,
Who's running this interview here?
are really awesome players of some sort. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay,
No, but that's
so
important.
speaking of creativity, you mentioned the business versus which is making creative
the art
music,
of music,
whatever.
the art versus the business of
Okay.
music is two different things for me.
One thing I like about trailer music is I think there's quite a bit of creative freedom.
Absolutely.
We
Yeah.
can mix in the most interesting sound design you can think of.
Yeah.
You can write any style. You could do like happy-go-lucky cartoon music.
Yep.
And be in a Pixar trailer, or
Yep.
you could do scary horror stuff, or you could do epic hybrid. I mean, really, and within that, we're not writing the picture.
Mm-hmm.
So you can really take that creative freedom.
Yeah.
So let's touch on that briefly for Dark Matter. Was this a creative project for you? And what was your kind of approach to that side of it?
This was interesting for me because one thing that I personally struggle with is just production and learning how to get the big Hollywood sound, and it's something Nick has helped me with a lot, and I think it shows in the production on the record. But for me personally, it was all about writing music that I want to hear. Like I said before, it just creating stuff that I felt like was real and was my own voice. That wasn't fabricated. It wasn't like me trying to sound like somebody else. I just sat down at the keyboard and came up with melodies that I liked to hear, you know. And I think that a lot of composers, when they're given the freedom, will write music that they want to hear. They themselves will put that record on. And that's why we tend to gravitate towards certain composers, because we either want to write like them or we hear something they've written and wish that we would have written it. I mean, there's so many bands.
Composer envy.
Yeah, that I hear their music all the time. I'm like, damn, I wish I would have written that song, or I wrote a song kind of like that, but theirs is so much better. What are they doing different?
Yeah.
And then going through that analysis process. But on this record specifically, I had the opportunity to just kind of be myself, and people don't often ask me to do that. A lot of times they hire me to channel other composers, and I'm really good at channeling now because I've had to do it for so many years. But you get kind of like you feel that kind of creative rush when someone says, all right, now you get to do something that's you, and we'll help you make it more exciting. And
Okay, so the last question we have is, what really gets you going? Say you're in your studio, what gets those goosebumps going? What keeps you driving to keep doing this? And
Well, when I sit down to write a cue, a lot of times I'm improvising my way through the first part of it, and then, you know, as I start to find melodies that I like listening to and reharmonizing and rewriting, and then I maybe hate it right at that moment, but I'll step away and come back the next day, and when you surprise yourself is when you know you've done a good job, you know. And I try to always make sure that what I do isn't too predictable, but it's still somewhat predictable, so people hear it feels familiar, but it also surprises them. And I like that when my work does it to myself, which is rare, but it does sometimes. And those moments are few and far between, but that's
Cool.
why I like doing this job. You know?
Okay, so where can people find you?
AdamGubman.com, Gubman. That's my website. And
Facebook, Twitter?
Facebook, yeah. I guess we'll post all the links and stuff. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, the whole thing. Every social network. It's a huge part of being a composer is networking that way, and that's.
And are you open to people sending you ideas or music? Do you have time to listen to people's?
I will always listen to everything that people send me, no matter what it is, and I'm always happy to give critical feedback and stuff. So, you know, I mean, for what it's worth, I don't know if I have much, you know, whatever I can offer. If you have questions, I'm happy to try to answer them, but a lot of the answering is just telling someone they're on the right track and go with your gut. But I still love hearing what other people are doing. So yeah, send away, do it.
All right, thanks.